Ever since I was younger, I was into video games.
Somebody like the fuse so I can bring bad news to all these crews who can't NBA jam with the shoe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to a quick beer review. Continuing on the Sierra Nevada train, going OG from Sierra Nevada, Chico, California, and also now, what is it, Mills River, North Carolina. This is the one and the only Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. This beer is near and dear to my heart. It's just an absolute classic. It's a beer that I enjoy, a beer that I've drank for a long, long time, and one of my first memories of beer ever. I'll get into that story, I guess. Per the label, a bottle conditioned pale ale, handcrafted it says, and it is 5.6% alcohol by volume, and they have white print on here, and I cannot read the bottle on date. June 20 something. So today's July 20th. Happy 720 day for all you arcade nerds out there. It's about a month in the bottle. It's fine. This beer does not have to be super, super fresh. It's good when it's really, really fresh. This is a month fresh, so plenty fresh, but one of those beers kind of like Celebration. It can just sit and hang out. I think it's all C-hopped. Let's see here. Pale ale in your hands, spark the amateur craft beer revolution. Whole cone Cascade hops. There you go. And they've been brewing this since 1980. This beer is about my age, which is fucking wild. Same recipe. It's just awesome. This beer is a beer that has clearly stood the test of time because it is still around and it is still, at least in California, being sold a ton. So let's get into it. I was saying this is one of my first memories of a beer ever. I was a sophomore in high school and I was at a party. I don't know why I would have been there. I think the only reason I would have been there was because it was a buddy of mine who lived in our neighborhood. He was a couple years older than me though, and he was my sister's age. And typically I didn't hang out with people who were my sister's age because she used to get bummed out when I hung out with people she knew and her friends. But he was a friend of mine too. But we were sitting in the backyard of his house, dead of winter, freezing cold. And there was a guy there. His name was Nick. One of the hairiest dudes you've ever seen in your entire life. He's one of those guys that looks like a bear when you take your shirt off. It's kind of like how my grandpa was. And he was sitting back there and we were talking and he was drinking Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. And he was like, "You want to try this?" And I was like, "No, not really." He's like, "Why not?" I'm like, "Because I don't drink beer." I was a sophomore in high school. I did not drink yet. I wasn't one of those kids who stole liquor from my parents. I had not drank beer up until that point of my sophomore year of high school. And I was like, "No, not really." He's like, "Just try it." And he hands me the bottle of it and he's like, "Do not smell it, just drink it." So I didn't smell it. I took a big drink of it and I literally almost threw up. It was the most disgusting shit I'd ever tasted in my entire life. And I just remember he laughed and he lifted his jacket up and he's like, "This is how you get hair on your chest. Drink this beer." I'll never forget that. So tried it again in college, didn't really love it. And then once the older I got, the more I got into hoppy beer and I started drinking it, and I absolutely love this beer. So let's get into it. This is kind of like that. It's not dark, but it's like a kind of going to that copper color. Tons of carbonation. There was plenty ahead when we poured that. It kind of hung out. It's dissipating now. There's about a quarter finger left. It's bright white, but yeah, it's just that kind of old school amber lagerish looking beer. That's the best way to describe it. It's crystal clear. There's a chill haze, but I can see my finger through this glass. So let's shove our fat nose in it. See what it's got. This beer is so nostalgic. It's just it smells so, I don't even know, like it's just, it smells classic to me. It is piney, it is floral, and it is bready. It's plenty hoppy, but it's just the sweetness from the malts. It's just so balanced. I fucking love it. I'm sure people think this is really hoppy for a pale ale, and it is hoppy. It's just, as someone, my whole beer drinking life wanted the most intense hoppy stuff. This beer doesn't smell crazy hoppy to me, but it's plenty hoppy for a pale ale. But yeah, sprucey, piney, pine cone, and that brown bread thing. It's very reminiscent to me of Celebration. Not quite as intense, obviously, but it just gives you that same feel, that same C-hop, old school, just it's weird because it's not wintertime ever in San Diego where I live now, but this is like a wintertime beer. It's like a cold weather beer. I don't know. Maybe it's because of that memory I have of it, of being dead of the winter, freaking 30 degrees in Sacramento. But This is like, I don't know. It's a fine warm weather beer too, but it just reminds me of like, I don't know, fall for some reason. Gosh, it smells so good. Cheers. It's absolutely delicious. I love this beer so hard. That hop, there's like a little bit of a hop resin thing. Almost comes off a little citrusy. But to me, this is floral, piney, grassy. Pine cone, pine tree, grass. Little bit of pithy, tiny bit of pithy, like maybe grapefruit. Tiny bit of bitterness. Again, this might be really hoppy to some people. To me, there's just a little pop of like hop bitterness middle of your tongue, but then you get all that sweet, crusty bread on the finish of that. It's just a joy to drink. It's so balanced, but it's so flavorful. And it's 5.6%. It's a low ABV. It's not going to kill you. Like this is a beer that, you know, old school hop heads probably have in their fridge all the time still. It sells all the time here in California. Like I said, I'm a simple guy. If I go to a bar and Sierra Nevada Pale Ale is on tap, I get it. You know what you're getting every time you get this beer. I don't know what this was like back in the 80s to people. It had to have been absolutely fucking wild, but yeah, this is just, it's so fun to drink this beer in this day and age of just all hazy, juicy beers. I just know that so many brewers these days, guys that are brewing hazy beers, they all, I'm sure, got inspiration from this beer. I'm sure plenty of guys that love this beer. It's just crazy amount of flavor you get out of a 5.5% pale ale. I have come to just absolutely appreciate beers like this now. Not that I've always loved them, but I appreciate them now, if that makes sense. I'm just so glad that when the haze craze kind of took over and everyone went to the hazy beers, that people didn't stop making beers like this. And to me, if you can make beer, if you're like a new school brewer and you can make a beer like this now, that's impressive to me. Because everyone talks about, people who brew beer talk about how easy it is to hide flaws in hazy beer. You make a beer like this nowadays, you have my respect. So, like I said, this is a legendary beer for me. It's fantastic. It's world class. It's fucking awesome. I love it. And just recently having Dale's Pale Ale, it'd be fun to kind of do this side by side. I think I prefer this beer to Dale's, just because I think it's a tad hoppier, and I don't think it's, not that there's anything wrong with like the brown bread sweetness in Dale's Pale Ale. This has breadiness to it, but it's more of like a white bread kind of a crusty thing that goes with the hops. I think Dale's Pale Ale is a little bit sweeter. That beer is awesome too, but I think if I were to have them side by side blind, I think I would prefer this one. Maybe I'll try and find some and do that. But for me, West Coast Pale Ales, like this is the king. This is the best West Coast Pale Ale there is. It stood the test of time. It's a 42-year-old recipe. It's still being freaking drunk today. It's amazing. So that's Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Hope you guys are fans. If you are, tell me your first memory of this beer. Let's tell stories. That's the best part of this. It was fun sharing that story with you guys. I hadn't thought of that story in a long time, but that was the first memory I ever had of craft beer, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale with old Nick in the back of my buddy Logan's house. It's good times. When was that? 1990? That would have been 1996. Crazy. We're old. So that's it. I'm out here. See you guys soon. Cheers.
Thank you for coming behind the bar, in the arcade, all that shit.
Ever since I was younger, I was into video games.
Somebody like the fuse so I can bring bad news to all these crews who can't NBA jam.